How did Marcus Aurelius become Marcus Aurelius? How does a boy of ordinary bloodlines etch his name permanently into history? How did a man given absolute power transcend precedent and become the philosopher king that every wise man since Plato had dreamed the world might one day see? It was not destiny or fate. It was not a fancy education. In fact, he was homeschooled by his grandparents for almost his entire early childhood. It wasn't until age 12 that a handful of tutors were selected by the Emperor Hadrian, who first saw something in this little boy. In fact, as one biographer tells us, his first teacher was a slave. And another writes of Marcus's education that if we were to judge it, we'd predict he'd turn out to be the very worst. Tutors and masters were selected from every corner of the globe, couldn't explain the forming of such a man, the French philosopher Ernest Renan says. Instead, it was from Marcus's stepfather, Antoninus, whom he revered above all, whom he considered the most beautiful model of a perfect life, that Marcus Aurelius became what he was. You see, Marcus's biological father died when he was just 3. He discovered philosophy a few years later. Perhaps he read Seneca's advice to choose a Cato, a model whose life could guide your own. Or maybe it was from his favorite philosopher Epictetus, who learned under Musonius Rufus. We don't know for sure, but we know that this young, fatherless boy was searching for someone to hold up as his example. And when Hadrian settled on his succession plan, he adopted that man, Antoninus, who in turn adopted Marcus. What Hadrian saw in Antoninus, an outstanding human being, as one historian says, Marcus clearly saw too. He found his model, he found his Cato, and he spent the next 4 decades striving to be like him. Somewhere near the end of his life, Marcus sat down and wrote what he learned from his stepfather and his father. It's an impressive list. If a father taught their child even half of what Marcus learned from Antoninus, he'd be guaranteed to raise a great son or daughter. So what were these things, and how can we learn from them? Let us list them. First, to love philosophy. Antoninus, as Marcus writes, honored those who were true philosophers, and he did not reproach those who pretended to be philosophers, nor yet was he easily led by them. 2, to read and study widely. Antoninus had a liberal attitude to education. He thought a person should seek to be useful, not just masters of their disciplines, but also well-versed in politics and the problems of state. 3, to be decisive. Marcus tells us that Antoninus had a remarkably unwavering adherence to decisions. Once he reached them, there was no hesitation, only resolute action. 4, to be humble. On Hadrian's deathbed, he summoned Antoninus. It was time to hand over the crown. Antoninus pushed back. This indifference to superficial honors, as Marcus said, reassured Hadrian with certainty that he had made the right decision. Marcus said that he revered this in Antoninus, his restrictions on acclamations and all attempts to flatter him. 5, he learned to keep an open mind. Marcus says he liked the way that Antoninus listened to anyone who could contribute to the public good. 6, to work hard. Antoninus kept a strict diet so he could spend less time exercising, more time serving the people of Rome. He limited even his bathroom breaks when he oversaw cases so that he could do more for more people. 7, to take care of his health. When we said that he spent less time, it wasn't no time exercising. Marcus would praise Antoninus's willingness to take adequate care of himself. He hardly ever needed medical attention or drugs or any sort of salve or ointment. By taking care of himself, he took care of his children and his country. 8, to be a good friend. Antoninus was what we would nowadays call a people person. One of his biographers writes, he felt at ease with other people and could put them at ease. Even towards those disingenuous social climbers, Antoninus was kind, and Marcus Aurelius admired how Antoninus never got fed up with them. Number 9, to be self-reliant. Antoninus showed Marcus that fortune was fickle. He carried a Spartan attitude to money in his private life, taking frugal meals and reducing the pomp on state occasions to republican simplicity. Frugality in industry was the only way to guarantee financial security. So when Marcus Aurelius wrote self-reliance always, it was Antoninus he was taking as his model. 10. To look to the experts. When the plague hit Rome in 165 AD, Marcus Aurelius knew what to do. He immediately assembled a team of Rome's most brilliant minds. As McLynn explains, his shrewd and careful personnel selection is worthy of study by any person in any position of leadership. But this in particular, Marcus said, he learned from Antoninus, the willingness to yield the floor to experts in speaking, in law, in psychology, whatever, and to support them energetically so that each could fulfill his potential. 11. To take responsibility with no excuses. Hadrian was known for his globe-trotting and his tendency to seek peace and quiet abroad when Rome was particularly chaotic. In a pointed disapproval, Marcus praised Antoninus' contrary example, his willingness to take responsibility and blame for the empire's needs and its problems. 12. To not lose your temper. Antoninus is dubbed in some Roman history books as the man who never was. Marcus explains why. He never exhibited rudeness, lost control of himself, or turned violent. No one ever saw him sweat, Marcus wrote. Everything was to be approached logically and with due consideration, in calm and orderly fashion, but decisively with no loose ends. And 13, to be self-controlled. As Marcus wrote, Antoninus knew how to enjoy and abstain from the things that most people find it hard to abstain from and all too easy to enjoy. Strength, perseverance, self-control in both areas, that was the mark of a soul in readiness. Marcus learned these things not because Antoninus told him about them, not because he received lectures or read about them in books. He learned them because Antoninus lived them. As Epictetus said, we should not talk about our philosophy, we should embody it. When Marcus himself would say, let us waste no more time arguing what a good man is like, be one, what he was saying then is be like my father, be like Antoninus. These lessons guided that powerful man through many trying times, so much so that when he reflected back on his life, he could recite them from memory, he could recall their power. And we are still recounting these lessons close to 2,000 years later. The things you teach your kids will shape their future and their children's future and the future of every person. So make sure you're setting that example. Make sure you're not talking about what a good person is like, what a good father is like. Make sure you are being one. If your children were to write down what they learned from you on their own deathbed, what would they write? Would they take you, like Marcus did, as their model? Would they worship your example? Would they sing your praises? If the answer is no, it is not too late. You still have the ability to shape that. You still have the ability to inspire them, to call them to greatness. So you must start today of all days. I want you to think of some of the great figures from history and art, the great parenting figures, the father figures. Abraham Lincoln, Coach Taylor from Friday Night Lights, Lee from Steinbeck's East of Eden, Antoninus Pius, the stepfather of Marcus Aurelius. Think of the great mother figures too, your Harriet Tubmans, Mary and Hannah from the Bible, Ma from Little House on the Prairie. What did these people embody? What made them so great? It was their patience, their kindness, their love, their wisdom, their courage, their dependability, their positivity. And just as in life we have models for our success in our career, we should have these for parenting too. Who is inspiring us to be the best parent that we can? How did Marcus Aurelius become Marcus Aurelius? How did he become the last emperor, the one who acted with wisdom and justice and courage and moderation? He had a model too, and that model was Antoninus Pius, his stepfather. His stepfather inspired him in all things, in self-reliance, in dedication and commitment, in empathy and compassion. And so as Marcus was blessed with a great father and a great stepfather, how can we bless our kids with that same thing? And that's what we built this course around. We're calling it the Stoic Parent. 10 Commandments for Being a Better Parent. It's based on the ancient Stoic wisdom. It's the strategies that the Stoics used thousands of years ago that inspired them as they built and led their own families. And now for thousands of years, that's been a model for other mothers and fathers as well. Successful parenting isn't about perfection. We're all gonna make mistakes. The Stoics knew that too, but we need help and we need guidance, and that's what their writing is here for, and that's why we made this course. Look, if you want to set a better example for your kid, if you want to show and not just tell them what to do, if you want to be there for them when they need you, if you want to help shape them into the person that you know they're capable of being, if you want to be more present, more patient, if you want to inspire them, if you want to protect them, well, that's what this course is about. And it's 10 commandments based on Stoic wisdom, classical wisdom that will help you be the best parent you absolutely can be. Hey, thanks for watching Daily Stoic. If you want to learn more about Stoicism, you can check out some of our other videos here. Subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. Keep learning, keep studying, and remember those 4 Stoic virtues: courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom.